2:13 a.m. A motorbike buzzed past the gate. Didn't slow, didn't stop. Tu Tien still snapped upright like the sound had teeth. Her heart hammered. Her hands went cold. She stared at the window, waiting for the dark to turn into a face. Jack woke in one blink, not startled, alert. The kind of alert that says, "I've seen danger arrive quietly." "Tu Tien," he whispered. She tried to answer. Nothing came. Her throat locked like a fist. Jack slid his hand into hers, careful, gentle. "Look at me," he said. "3 things you can hear." Tu Tien swallowed. Min. Breathing. The clock. Ticking. Your voice. Good. Jack didn't let his voice rise. 2 things you can feel. "The blanket," she rasped. "Your hand." "1 thing you can see. The tree lights." Tiny blinks in the corner, stubbornly soft. Jack breathed out. "You're here," he said. "I'm here." And that's when Tu Tien began to shake. Quiet, hard, like she was trying not to wake the whole house with her fear. I hate this," she whispered. "A sound, and I'm back at the gate, back at that car." Jack's mouth tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't." Tu Tien's grip turned fierce. "Don't say it like it's your fault. My mind won't stop checking, like if I stop watching, something will happen and I'll deserve it." The room went still. Jack's voice softened. "Who taught you that?" Tu Tien closed her eyes. The answer lived in her bones. "In my old home," she said. "Silence was how I survived. If something broke, it was my fault. If someone left angry, it was my fault." Her breath shuddered. "If I asked for kindness, I got punished for wanting." Jack didn't explode. He just held her hand like an anchor. "So now," she whispered, "even when you're beside me, my body keeps preparing for you disappearing." Jack stared into the dark. When he spoke, his voice cracked. "Last night I dreamed I was calling you, and you didn't answer." Tu Tien turned. "I woke up with my heart racing," he admitted. "I wanted to check the gate again and again. I didn't because I didn't want to scare you." He swallowed. "But it scared me too." Tu Tien's eyes filled, not because she was worse than him, because she wasn't alone. "So what do we do?" she asked, small. "I don't want fear to turn me into someone I don't recognize." Jack wiped a tear with his thumb. "We build a bridge," he said, "not a cage." "A bridge. If I ever need to leave," he said, "I don't slip out. I look at you and I say the same words every time." "What words?" Jack held her gaze. "I leave. I return. Safe." Tu Tien's throat tightened. Hope hurting because it was new. "And you," Jack said, "when the panic spikes, you don't hide it. You say one sentence." She let out a broken laugh. "What sentence?" "I'm an aftershock." Tu Tien nodded, tears slipping. "That's true. That's all we need," Jack murmured. Truth. Out loud. Morning arrived like nothing had happened. Rice steam. Warm bowls. The normal life that tries to cover trauma like a blanket. Mom Loy looked at Tu Tien's tired eyes and didn't pry. She set breakfast down and said, After a hard night, we strengthen the day. Anna padded in, clutching her paper, daylight, folded and refolded like it could protect the whole house. She slid it toward Tu Tien. If the dark comes back, she whispered, we show it this. Tu Tien's chest pinched. Jack kissed Anna's hair. Min made a soft baby sound. Half yawn, half sigh. For a moment, the kitchen felt like safety. Later, Mr. Deng and Officer Thu sat at the table with paperwork instead of panic. The envelope, the time notes, witness names, the description of the badge man. This is how we step out of darkness, Officer Thu said. Not by shouting, by documenting, by refusing private corners. Tu Tien took the pen. Her hand trembled. She signed anyway. The tremble didn't mean weakness. It meant she was doing it scared. Officer Thu stood. If they come again, she said, firm, you do not open the gate. Not for badges, not for paper, not for tears. Call. We come. Tu Tien nodded. Jack's hand rested on her shoulder, steady as a wall. After Officer Thu left, the house went quiet in a different way, like everyone was listening for the next lie. Tu Tien washed a bowl. The spoon clinked against ceramic. Her whole body flinched. She hated that. Hated how fast her skin remembered. Jack came up behind her, not touching yet, just close. Right now, he said gently. You're safe. Name it. Tu Tien swallowed. I'm in aftershock. Jack nodded. Good. He pointed to the window. What do you see? The mango tree, she whispered. Sun on the leaves. What do you hear? Min, little sounds. She breathed. Anna humming. Jack's shoulders loosened. We don't fight the fear by pretending it's stupid, he said. We fight it by proving one moment at a time that it doesn't get to drive. Tu Tien nodded, blinking hard, because she wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. That afternoon, Jack said, Let's walk to the road and back. Tu Tien's stomach clenched. The gate in her mind wasn't wood. It was a trigger. She almost said no. Then she heard her own words. I'm in aftershock, she told him. Jack nodded. Then we go slow. At the gate, he turned fully toward her. Eye to eye. No rushing. I leave, he said softly. I return. Safe. Tu Tien swallowed. Her throat tried to lock. It didn't win. They opened the gate. Cold air slid in. Ordinary, unapologetic. One step out, then another. A motorbike passed far away. Her shoulders jumped, then settled. Jack didn't praise her. He just stayed beside her until her body understood. Nothing happened. They reached the edge of the road, turned back, and then a white car appeared at the far end of the lane. Slow, careful, familiar in the worst way. Tu Tien's blood turned to ice. The car rolled closer, not speeding, not stopping, just coming, like it owned the road. Jack's hand tightened around hers. "Behind me," he murmured. The window slid down. A man's hand lifted from inside, holding something dark and rectangular. A badge, a phone, a camera. It angled toward them, toward the gate, toward Tu Tien's face. "Folks, my heart is pounding. Before we see the rescue, please hit subscribe." The dark rectangle stayed pointed at them. Tu Tien couldn't tell if it was a badge, a phone, a camera, only that it felt like an eye, like someone had come back to take something. Jack moved one step forward, putting his body between Tu Tien and the car. His voice dropped, calm but sharp. "Who are you?" The man didn't get out. He leaned an elbow on the window frame like this was casual, like fear was a tool he used every day. "We just need a quick signature," he said. 5 minutes. Don't make it difficult." Tu Tien's stomach twisted. That phrase, "don't make it difficult," wasn't a request. It was a threat dressed as politeness. Jack didn't budge. "State your name, state your office." The man lifted the rectangle higher, as if recording them. "You don't want trouble," he said. "We can do this the easy way." Tu Tien's knees went soft. Her body tried to freeze the way it had at dusk. But she heard Jack's words from the night before, like a rope thrown into water. "We name it, we don't hide it." Tu Tien forced air into her lungs. "I'm in aftershock," she whispered, just loud enough for Jack to hear. Jack didn't look back. He squeezed her hand once. A signal. "I heard you. Stay with me." Then he raised his voice so the whole lane could hear. "This is private property. You are recording without consent. Leave." The man's smile flattened. "Your wife is emotional," he said, eyes flicking past Jack like Tu Tien was furniture. "This is about the child." That sentence landed like a slap. Tu Tien felt heat rise in her face, shame trying to crawl back into her skin. Jack's voice turned colder. "Don't speak about my family." The man tapped the rectangle with his thumb. "Open the gate sign, it's simple." Tu Tien's mouth went dry. They were outside the gate right now. The gate wasn't a shield. The road suddenly felt too wide, too exposed. Jack's hand tightened around hers. "Back," he murmured. "Now." They moved, slow, controlled, step by step toward the gate. Tu Tien's heart screamed run, but Jack kept it steady, like guiding someone off thin ice. The man watched them retreat, still filming. "Tu Tien," he called suddenly, using her name like he'd earned it. "If you don't cooperate, the paperwork will move without you." Her skin prickled. He knew her name. That meant this wasn't random. This was targeted. Tu Tien's fingers shook on the latch. For 1 second, she saw the dusk car again. Headlights like eyes, a stranger's mouth making that lie. He's in the car. Her hands stopped working. Jack's voice cut through. "Tu Tien, look at me." She blinked. He held her face gently, firm enough to anchor her. "3 things you can hear." Tu Tien swallowed. Her voice came out thin, but it came out. "Your breathing, my breathing, the car engine." "Good," Jack said. 2 things you can feel. "The metal latch," she whispered. "Your hand." "Or one thing you can see." Tu Tien's eyes jumped to the mango leaves, sunlight flashing on green, crescent. She got the gate open. They slipped inside. Jack shut it fast and locked it with a hard click that sounded like a decision. The man in the car leaned forward, irritation flashing now that the performance wasn't working. "You think a lock stops this?" he called. "We'll be back." Jack pulled his phone out, thumb already moving. He didn't argue. He didn't threaten back. He did the thing Officer Thu had taught them. Process, proof, witness. He raised the phone and filmed openly. "Say that again," Jack said, loud and clear. "State your name and your office." The man's eyes narrowed. He glanced down the lane, like he suddenly remembered other people existed, and then, from the neighbor's yard, a voice shouted, "Hey! Who's that?" "Mr. Dung." And another voice, higher, angry. "Why are you filming them?" Two women from the market road were walking up with baskets. They stopped, staring. The man in the car stiffened, because bullies love private corners. And this corner was filling up. Jack kept filming. "Officer Thu is on the way," he said, not bluffing. Tu Tien's hands trembled so badly she had to grip the gate to stay upright. Her throat burned with old fear, but she stayed standing. She stayed visible. The man's mouth twitched. He started the car like he meant to leave, then stopped again, like he wanted the last word. "This isn't finished," he said. A child's voice rose behind Tu Tien. "Mom!" "Anna." Tu Tien spun around. Anna stood on the porch with her daylight paper held in both hands. Her eyes were wide, but her feet were planted. Tu Tien's heart cracked. Because Anna shouldn't have to learn courage this early. Tu Tien rushed to her, scooping her close. "Inside," she whispered into Anna's hair. "Right now." Anna clutched Tu Tien's shirt. "Is it the dark again?" Tu Tien swallowed tears. "It tried," she whispered. "But we're showing it daylight." Outside, the car door opened. The man stepped out. That changed everything. Jack's body shifted, ready to block. Mr. Dung stepped closer, not afraid, just solid. "Brother," Mr. Dung called, firm. "You're on our village road. State your reason." The man lifted his rectangle again, like a shield. "Official work," he said. But his voice wasn't confident anymore. It was thin, like a lie running out of air. And then, a motorbike engine roared up the lane. Fast, purposeful, Officer Thu. She stopped hard, dust puffing around her tires. She swung off, eyes sharp, already taking in the scene. The car, the man, the phones recording, the neighbors gathering. "Good," she said, voice like steel. "Everyone stay where you are." The man's face flashed with panic, then a fake smile. "Officer," he said, trying to sound respectful, "we're resolving a family matter." Officer Thu didn't smile back. "Family matters don't involve intimidation," she said, "and they don't involve recording people at their gate." She stepped closer, hand out. "Your identification, The man hesitated half a second too long. Officer Thu's eyes narrowed. Now. He fumbled something from his pocket and handed it over. Officer Thu glanced once, and her jaw tightened. "This is not valid," the neighbors murmured. The air thickened with outrage. Tu Tien hugged Anna tighter. Anna's little fingers dug into her shoulder like hooks. Officer Thu lifted her own phone, snapping photos. "You," she said to the man, "are being reported for impersonation and harassment. Step away from the vehicle." The man took one step back, then another, like he wanted to run. Officer Thu's voice rose. "Stop!" He froze. Jack's phone was still recording. Mr. Dung's phone too. Two women from the road had their cameras up. For once, the truth had witnesses. The man's shoulders sagged, anger leaking out now that the mask was gone. "You people think you're safe," he spat. Officer Thu's expression didn't change. "Not because we think," she said. "Because we document. Because we show up. Because we don't open gates for lies." She turned to Jack. "Send me that video." Jack nodded. "Already saved." Officer Thu turned back to the man. "Get in the car," she ordered. "You're coming with me." The man's eyes flicked to Tu Tien. One last attempt to put fear back in her skin. Tu Tien felt it, that old instinct to lower her eyes, to disappear. But Anna's arms were around her neck, and Jack was beside her. And the neighbors were watching. Tu Tien lifted her chin. Her voice came out shaking, but it came out. "You don't get to visit my home," she said. "You don't get to use my child as a threat." The man stared at her, startled, as if he'd expected her to stay silent forever. Officer Thu stepped between them. "That's enough." The man got in the car. Officer Thu followed on her motorbike, escorting him down the lane like a warning to anyone else who thought fear was easy. When the road finally went quiet again, Tu Tien's knees buckled. Jack caught her before she fell. He didn't say, "See, it's fine." He didn't rush her out of it. He held her like someone holds a trembling candle in wind. Tu Tien pressed her face into his shirt and let herself cry. Hard, ugly, honest. "I froze," she whispered. Jack's hand stroked her hair. "You didn't," he said softly. "You shook, and you stayed." Tu Tien's tears spilled faster. "I'm so tired of my body reacting first." Jack kissed her forehead. "Your body kept you alive for years," he murmured. "We're teaching it a new job now." Anna sniffed, still clinging. Tu Tien pulled back and cupped Anna's cheeks. "You were brave," Tu Tien whispered. Anna shook her head, little lip trembling. "I was scared." Tu Tien nodded. "Brave is scared, and standing anyway." That night, the tree lights blinked in the corner again. Anna sat at the table with a crayon, tongue between her teeth in concentration. She took her daylight paper and added 3 small words under it, carefully, like a spell. Leave, return, safe. Jack stared, throat working. He crouched and hugged her. "That's our bridge," he whispered. Tu Tien watched them, her chest aching with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not relief, not victory. Something deeper. Belonging. Later, when the house settled, Tu Tien lay down beside Jack. The night was still, and when a distant motorbike passed, far away, harmless, Tu Tien's heart jumped, just once. Then she breathed. She whispered into the dark, like a promise to her own trembling body. "I'm an aftershock." Jack's hand found hers. "I'm here," he murmured. And for the first time in a long time, Tu Tien believed the ending of the sentence. Safe.